Earlier, the Minister of Foreign Affairs announced that the 50th anniversary celebration of ECOWAS will begin at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, the very site where the regional body was founded in 1975. The second phase of the commemoration, he said, will take place at the Eco Hotels and Suites. Moya Thomas has more.
Wednesday, the 28th of May, will make it exactly 50 years the Economic Community of West African States was formed in Lagos State. It was called the Treaty of Lagos. It aims to promote cooperation and integration among the 15 African nations to foster economic growth and development in the region. As the remaining 12 member states in the regional body prepares to mark the milestone which Nigeria is hosting, the Minister of Foreign Affairs says despite the challenges caused by the withdrawal of 3 member states, there are still many achievements to be celebrated, particularly the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme
that has allowed for an increase in the volume of states of trade amongst the states. So intra-regional trade, we're talking about the Abidjan-Lagos corridor. We're talking about the Abidjan-Dakar corridor. These are trade and transport corridors. We're talking about SIGMAT, which has digitized the tracking of goods and containers within the region. We are talking about the common external tariff.
He also speaks of other achievements worth celebrating.
ECOWAS has also achieved so much in terms of standardizing. So when you talk about the West Africa Power Pool, for instance, which is looking to harmonize what all the states, all the countries are generating in terms of power and how to redistribute it within the region.
He says activities for the event will also highlight other projects like the African Atlantic Pipeline, which seeks to supply gas from the region to other 15 countries and ultimately Europe, and other youth-focused projects. The only surviving head of state at the signing of the treaty, General Yakubu Gowon, will be the special guest.
Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, David Awarawo, joins me live from Lagos via Zoom. Good to have you join us, Prof. 50 years after, will you say that ECOWAS has actually fulfilled the purpose for its establishment?
No, it hasn't. ECOWAS was established to promote economic integration and social development in West Africa. It has done a bit in trying to achieve the objectives, but the achievements have been very modest. When we look at what the noble objectives that were set out when it was established are, compared with where ECOWAS is now. For instance, intra-community trade across West Africa is less than 15%. So if you look at it from that point of view alone, regarding the central objective, which is to promote economic integration, you see that what it has achieved is still very, very little compared with the high expectations that that were expressed when it was established in May 1975. So, well, but there is a lot to celebrate about that. At least ECOWAS is still in existence. It's still trying to work to fulfill those objectives, but the road is still very far.
But as leaders gather for the 50th anniversary of founding of ECOWAS, what do you consider should be priority for them?
Well, like I said before, the fact that ECOWAS is still in existence cause for celebration, because the pulling out of the 3 member countries by January this year, and the events up to that time threatened the very existence of ECOWAS. So the fact that ECOWAS is still in existence cause for celebration. Recall that the East African Community that was established in 1967 collapsed a decade later, 1977, because of political disagreement. and then, of course, re-established again in 2000. So the fact that ECOWAS in its existence, at least 12 member countries are still there, and efforts still being made to bring back those that left. Before then, Mauritania left in 2000, came back 2017 as associate member. So the fact that we still have 12 member countries working hard to promote integration within the continent, within the sub-region, cause for celebration. And like the minister said, a lot of achievements since then, infrastructure, linking the states of the sub-region together, trade, flowing, across the sub-region, although not to the level that one will expect. So there are achievements, actually. But, of course, like I said before, when we compare what has been achieved with those objectives and the high expectations that were there in 1975, we can only say that the achievements have been very, very modest.
All right. You spoke about the withdrawal of 3 countries from, the regional body. And, I'm curious as to how you think ECOWAS can boost its influence, in the sub-region to actually be able to wield that authority and to enjoy the support of all member countries and every country actually within the sub-region?
Well, ECOWAS, first of all, needs to pay more attention to good governance. Not to wait when there is a coup and then, the member countries begin to react. When countries begin to take steps or leaders begin to take steps that could be detrimental to democratic development, ECOWAS needs to take action. For instance, in Cote d'Ivoire right now, the president, Alassane Ouattara, changed constitution to have a 3rd term. He wants to change again to have a 4th term, and we haven't heard from ECOWAS. There were rumors of coup last week, which turned out to be false. If a coup takes place in that country now, ECOWAS will want to say, we are against, military rule. But those things, those ingredients of democratic expansion, which ECOWAS needs to pay attention to, it usually does not. That is one flaw that ECOWAS needs to address, so that it will not look hypocritical when there is a coup before a coup. That is, the civilians change constitution, elongate their tenure, and you now have a military coup, and then they now begin to react to it. That is one flaw ECOWAS needs to address to be able to stamp its authority on, development, in the sub-region. Of course, there's also the issue of diversification. If the economies of West African states are not diversified, trade cannot expand because they will have the same commodities to sell and they cannot sell to each other. These are things that need to be addressed, really, for ECOWAS to, move with greater rapidity in fulfilling its objectives.
About the first point you mentioned, about holding on to power, I'm curious as to how easy or feasible, achieving that would be, considering that, these are leaders from their different countries, of course, with their ego, with their own objectives, with their own passion and all. How do you consider that they can actually reach that resolution and be able to hold one another accountable such that they don't degenerate to that level where civilians begin to, turn against the leaders?
They can do that. They can do that with sincerity of purpose. And when the majority of them, show commitment to that, they can achieve it. And what can help them is the fact that in the early 1960s, when independence was gained, for instance, in 1963, when the UAE was formed, the general feeling was that no state should be allowed to intervene in the internal affairs of other states. And that went on for many years. But by the early 2000s, it became clear that that provision was not in the interest of Africa, and of course, by extension, West Africa. So we now have provisions in the AU Constituent Act, which provides for states to ask questions regarding what is happening in member states. That is what ECOWAS can leverage on. We are no longer in the era of sacrosanctity of sovereignty. You can ask questions. There's even a peer review mechanism, which means that countries can ask questions regarding what is happening in member countries. These are things that ECOWAS leaders can, take advantage of to be able to ask questions regarding good governance, which will enable ECOWAS to be able to stamp its authority on developments in West Africa.
Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, Professor David Awarawo, thank you very much for your time on TVC News at 1.
Thank you for having me.